is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, Norml.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Norml Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Norml. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Norml Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Norml's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belden.
Oh, yeah. Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Monday, April 30th, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. And we are back live and direct here from Rolla J Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon. Back from so many trips, so many places to be, and I got lots to tell you all about it. Before we get to that, though, let's introduce from our virtual studio in beautiful Grass Storia, Oregon, our senior news editor, Cannabis Carrie.
That's right. You've been traveling the world. I've been sitting here on this mic waiting for you to return. Thanks for coming home, Russ.
Thank you so much, Carrie. With bated breath, she sits by the microphone waiting to dispense the
traveling.
news. That's right. We're building up plenty of frequent flyer miles, I'll tell you that. Cannabis Carrie brings us the hemp headlines right here at the top. And since I've been gone so long, I'm sure there's plenty of news to get to. What's in the news today?
There is so much news. We'll try to cover it all in before Thursday. But we're going to start off with some criticisms of the Obama administration. We've been talking a lot about that Rolling Stones interview last week. And we're going to cover the White House Correspondents' Dinner and also some criticism from a lawmaker on Capitol Hill. Also, we've got a big donor to the Colorado campaign. I'm going to tell you all about that today. We've got a professor that got in a little trouble as they left the country. I'll talk to you about that. And first up, though, we've got some big news on another California closure of a medical cannabis institution. We'll start with that today.
Oh, no. Yeah, we don't want to hear about that. That's terrible news, Carrie, but we'll get to that right after this first break. Also joining us in the studio, we got Wiz Calico hanging out here. How you doing, Wiz?
Aloha, doing quite well, man. Glad to be back. Glad you're back.
I'm glad to be here. And I got the different camera going there. There's Wiz Calico, but glad to be back. How was your weekend and the time since I've been away?
Quite well. Hung out with some socialists, so it was always a great weekend.
Hanging out with socialists?
Yeah, man. Yeah, they support ending the war on drugs, too. So,
well,
good company.
They got that going for them, which is good. Also on today's show, all sorts of great stuff. For our Roots Monday, I'm going to bring you some tunes from out in San Antonio. I sat in with Chief Greenbud at their 420 Freedom Fest, or Freedom Fest, I should say. So we're going to play a little bit of It's Only a Weed, his cover of Hey There, Delilah, with marijuana lyrics, with me singing harmony vocals. Then we've got all sorts of interviews from the Patients Out of Time conference that I just came back from in Tucson, Arizona. It's the clinical conference on cannabis therapeutics, and all of the top researchers, scientists, and activists in medical marijuana were there. We're going to be speaking with Nurse Ed Glick, who's trying to form the American Cannabinoid Nurses Association. We'll speak with Jim Clark, an Oregon activist I had to go all the way to the desert to meet up with, but he's running for state representative here in Oregon. And Dr. Andrew Weil, his remarks from the event, and the Black Tuna, Bobby Platshorn. So all that coming up right after this.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Norml. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of Norml attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Norml Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
That's the Dirt Ball from Suburban Noise Records, Cottonmouth Kings. This is Norml Show Live. Keep it right here, yeah.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or a flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Elliot Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Norml News with Cannabis Carrie.
Berkeley Patients Group of Berkeley, California is closing their doors after today. They have no plans of reopening them. One of the oldest, respected, and well-known patient groups in medical marijuana dispensaries in California sent an email to collective members this morning telling them that today was their last day in business. Berkeley Patients Group is widely considered a model dispensary in the town that led the charge to regulate medical marijuana in the Wild West state. Between the federal tax lawsuit against Harborside Health Center, the raid on Oaksterdam University, and now the closing of Berkeley Patients Group, activists are reeling after blow to the industry in California. Russ, what do you make of this latest closure, seemingly without any notice?
Well, it seems to me like the position of the Obama administration is clear. They are not, absolutely not, going to go after patients or the doctors that recommend marijuana to those patients. But if somebody wants to set up a nonprofit, tax-paying, job-creating, above-ground, following the regulations business, nonprofit at that, to help the patients get that cannabis to use medically, to help those doctors get that cannabis to those patients, well then, by God, he's going to come down hard on them, make sure that they got run right out of town on a rail, don't get to stay in business anymore. It's just perfectly okay for the patients and doctors, but not for the producers, the growers, or the sellers. I suppose the patients and doctors are just fine so long as the weed fairy drops by and brings them a seed or a clone or some medicine every now and then. I just can't understand why you'd want to drive all this back underground, back to the parking lots, back to the high schools, back to the back alleys, to the dude's house to pick up medicine of questionable quality from people of dubious ethics. It makes no sense whatsoever. Unless, of course, it's politically motivated and you're trying to dry the coffers of the people trying to contribute money to the legalization of medical and recreational marijuana, then it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense from Obama's point of view.
And over the weekend, the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner was held that mixes Washington, D.C. politicians with Hollywood royalty and D.C. journalists. The dinner is always held on the last Saturday in April in the nation's capital, and in the last decade has been hosted by comedians in what has become a tradition of roasting the president and other high-profile politicians. This year, late-night host Jimmy Kimmel was given the honor of hosting the event, and he took that opportunity to rib the president over marijuana legalization. President Obama has been pressured to answer questions lately about the continuing raids of medical marijuana dispensaries in states where they are legal, as he is now running for a second term. What was seen as a platform of supporting the cause of medical marijuana during his first campaign has ended with a crackdown on medical marijuana suppliers in key medical marijuana states. Jimmy Kimmel took his time on the podium and the attention of the national press to ask the president in front of the audience, what is with the crackdown on medical marijuana, asking if they were trying to protect the nation's Funyun supply. He also reminded the president that pot smokers vote too, adding the joke that sometimes they just vote a week after the election, but they surely vote. He also asked the audience of lawmakers in Hollywood's A-list if anyone in the entire room would raise their hand if they had never smoked weed before. A few hands went up, but certainly not the hands of the president or the first lady. Then he turned to the president and told him, quote, "Marijuana is something that real people care about." Now, a reporter that was tending the dinner with Attorney General Eric Holder quoted the AG as saying that there is no designated war on medical marijuana, but only individual businesses that are breaking both state and federal laws. I'm just so glad that Mr. Kimmel brought it up and ended the marijuana discussion with a statement and not a joke. Russ, I know you were traveling this weekend, but did you get to see that clip?
Yeah, I saw it late last night while I was in the Tucson, Arizona, the Tucson Norml chapter. They're called AZ4 Norml. They put me up in their offices, and I saw it late last night and got it blogged almost before anyone else. I think Huffington Post beat me to it, but I beat all the marijuana blogs to it. I've got that video for us. I want you to check this out, folks, because check the tone of the room and how kind of uncomfortable this made the president and some of the other people in there having to deal with the marijuana question. It's brilliant.
I do have one real question for you, Mr. President. What's with the marijuana crackdown? I mean, seriously, what is the concern? We will deplete the nation's Funyun supply? You know, pot smokers vote too, sometimes a week after the election, but they vote. Let's take a quick poll. I would like everyone in this room to raise your hand if you've never smoked pot. There you go. Look at Britt Hume. He's high right now. He's on his 4th almond macaroon. Mr. President, I hope you don't think I'm out of line here, but marijuana is something that real people care about, and the fact that you believe Speaker Boehner, when he tells you he still has control of his party, leads me to believe that you must be smoking some crazy great weed yourself. Woody Harrelson just woke up.
And he isn't just getting pressure from comedians. President Obama has also had to answer questions about his medical marijuana policies from lawmakers, too. Representative Barney Frank, the Democrat from Massachusetts, who has introduced cannabis reform legislation, had some sharp criticism for the president over the recent medical marijuana dispensary raids in states that allow medical marijuana by law. In an interview on Friday, Representative Frank, who is not seeking re-election after serving over 2 decades in the House of Representatives, said that what the president is doing over the recent dispensary raids is bad politics and bad policy. He said he was disappointed with President Obama over how he has handled medical marijuana states and said that he has made a grave political mistake. Frank sponsored the Medical Marijuana Patients Protection Act that would have prohibited any federal action over medical cannabis in states where they have passed laws allowing its use. When asked by a reporter if Representative Frank smoked marijuana, he told them that he hasn't had an abortion or even played poker on the internet, pointing out that you don't have to be a cannabis consumer to support cannabis law reform. Obama said during his election campaign that if elected, he would not be using Justice Department resources to try and circumvent state law on the issue. But activists are pointing out that during his first 4 years in office, over 170 SWAT-style raids have been conducted in at least 9 states that have passed medical marijuana laws to allow it. Most recently, federal agents shut down an iconic marijuana industry training tech school, Oxford University, a business that has paid millions in taxes and graduated 15,000 students. In a recent Rolling Stone issue, Obama said in an interview that he never made a commitment to give carte blanche to large-scale producers of marijuana because it is against federal laws. Well, if that's his reason for allowing the business raids, one wonders if he was aware that patients using marijuana for medical reasons has and is also against federal law. I don't know. Maybe he forgot, Russ.
Yeah, it's hard to tell anymore. But with respect to this statement by the president in this Rolling Stone interview, he came out and he said, well, my hands are tied here. I can't just subvert congressional law. I can't go against what Congress. And I pointed out a bunch of places where he's obviously not, like Defense of Marriage Act, for example. He's directed his Justice Department not to defend that act. So it's obvious that and that was a congressionally passed law. There's obviously things he has the power to do. But John Walker today at Firedog Lake in the Just Say Now blog came up with a really good point. And that is the fact that we're not talking about the president trying to subvert the Controlled Substances Act. The Controlled Substances Act gives the executive branch the power to move drugs down schedule. Just by executive order, President Obama, in one stroke of the pen, could change all of this. He could downregulate natural cannabis to Schedule 3, where Marinol, Dronabinol is sitting. It could be done. So the excuse here that he can't just violate the law, he can't go against Congress, that's just not going to wash anymore.
And Coloradans will get to vote on marijuana legalization in the form of Amendment 64, the citizen initiative that is qualified to be on the Colorado ballot. Getting on the ballot is costly. We've been reporting on the efforts of cannabis activist groups working to put up the big bucks it takes to run a successful initiative campaign. Amendment 64 has just gotten a little help from the Marijuana Policy Project. MPP has decided to use the funds from a recent money bomb campaign to help Amendment 64. MPP is giving the Colorado campaign to legalize marijuana in the state $500,000. MPP did not financially support Proposition 19 in California in 2010, but has always given media and public educational support to legalization efforts, including the failed Prop 19. Mason Tvert, a sponsor of the legalization effort in Colorado, called the money a huge boost and said that it is an opportunity to expand on the success that they are having this time around. According to Morgan Fox, the communications manager for MPP, he said that there are no plans to contribute any financial support to Washington State's I-502 initiative, but the only other state legalization effort that has so far qualified and will make its way to voters in November. Now, according to the Amendment 64 campaign, also known as the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, they will use these funds to promote their message in TV ads. They have already paid for a large billboard in downtown Denver and have begun distributing flyers to educate voters on the need for sensible cannabis laws. The $500,000 donated to the campaign is the largest sum of money that the effort has received so far.
Absolutely, and kudos to MPP for getting that out to the Colorado campaign, and shrewd politicking as well, getting it out to the Colorado campaign, but having nothing to do with the Washington campaign, you know, with the controversy that's going on with that, and guess who gets to get saddled with that controversy? All right, well, that's the way politics goes sometimes, and we will keep you posted on how well both of these initiatives do. Let's just hope we can pass legalization in 2012.
And I can't call this bust of a Harvard professor a stupid stoner story, but this morning, a judge in the British territory of Bermuda has released an American university instructor with no charges filed after she was caught with marijuana in the airport. May Akasha, who is an environmental health instructor at the Harvard School of Public Health, spent the weekend preparing to see a judge instead of frolicking on the beach with her husband. Akasha was caught in the Bermuda airport after drug dogs alerted airport authorities that she was carrying drugs. Prosecutors said after a strip search that they found a plastic bag that contained 6 grams of marijuana stuffed into the Harvard professor's underwear. She told authorities that she used it for medical reasons and that a doctor had given her a prescription to use the medication due to her intense pain. She addressed the Bermuda court this morning, telling the judge that she did know that marijuana was illegal in Bermuda, but she had responded illogically to that knowledge due to the amount of pain she was in. The Boston native told the judge that she did not have any documentation or paperwork with her to confirm her doctor's blessing, but she said that she did have a doctor in California that had all the documentation that she was using marijuana to treat post-operative pain and nausea. The judge noted that with all her education and prominent position at Harvard, that he found it strange that she could not provide the court with any documentation, but he went ahead and discharged her from custody with no fine, saying a conviction of the visibly emotional Akasha would have an overwhelming effect on her and her career. With the publicity of the case, it will no doubt affect her anyway. Harvard has yet to comment on this matter, but has received several media requests for one.
Wow. So I hope Bermuda got their money's worth here strip searching a Harvard professor, because who knows what kind of terrible, terrible dangers and mayhem she could have created on the Barbados Islands there by having marijuana in her underwear. I mean, my God, the entire island culture could have just gone up in flames, the mayhem that would have ensued if this Harvard-educated woman were allowed to smoke marijuana to ease her pain. I mean, think of the children. Won't somebody just think of the children here? Every time I hear one of these cases, it just highlights the absurdity of it. And whenever I hear people say, well, you know, nobody really goes to jail for marijuana. Geez, Josh Markey, Carrie's boyfriend up there in Clatsop County, right, Carrie? You and Josh? No.
Oh, yeah, Josh and I, we go way back.
Yeah. Josh Markey just the other day was going off on something about how in Oregon it was statutorily impossible, given the criminal sentencing guidelines in Oregon, for someone to go to prison for marijuana possession. And I think, okay, you might be right there, Josh, but What about getting strip searched? What about losing your driver's license? What about the stain on your record and the effect that it has on your job and your education and losing your financial aid? And this poor woman here, Harvard educated, she's going to go back and have to deal with that, some sort of sanction from the university. These are the kind of collateral damages that happen because we feel we have some need to punish people for using marijuana, and we have some weird fantasy, this duty we have to try to stop them when we know it's impossible. People have been smoking pot for thousands of years. They're going to keep smoking pot. Nothing we do is stopping. Strip searches aren't going to stop them. Prisons aren't going to stop them. And how many lives do we ruin in the process?
You know what that sound means? It's time for a break, friend. Got a little bit of Raspberry Kush loaded up.
All right, Raspberry Kush sounds good.
Get to it.
New Jim Crow.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Norml Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
On the road again. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Friends, it's time we legalize the responsible use of marijuana and stop treating marijuana smokers like criminals. We're destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of good, hardworking Americans every year in this country for no good reason. There's absolutely nothing wrong with smoking pot. For more information on how you can help legalize marijuana, please contact Norml at norml.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Norml Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
Oh, well, folks, it's great to be back in town. I'm here for the next 4 days, Monday through Thursday, for these live shows from Rolla J Studios. Friday, I'll be off because I'm flying to Dallas for their Cinco de Mota, the Global Marijuana March. That's happening all over the world, though, so check out the Global Marijuana March. Just go to Google, type in Global Marijuana March. You'll find the site. I think curesnotwars.org can get you there as well. There's over 300 cities where this is going on, and the whole reason I am here as your paid professional Portland pothead pundit is because I went to a marijuana march. Kaliko, the only reason he's here is because he went to the Global Marijuana March in Portland and met people and got involved and let them know that he was ready to go. And I let people know I was ready to go. I was ready to enlist in this war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs for the good guys. So you can do it. Get out to the march this weekend. Bodies in the streets, man. You can post on Facebook all you like. You can write emails and letters to the editors all you like. But what really counts is putting your feet on the street and making your voice heard for marijuana legalization. Let people see you. Let people know there's nothing to fear. We're just normal, regular, everyday people. So I really, really encourage you to get involved with that. Now, to get to the music for today, I did want to bring up a clip from my trip to San Antonio for the 420. I brought some of this to you before. We did the It's 420 Somewhere, at 420, on 420, in room 420. If you missed that, check our archives or go to our YouTube page at youtube.com/normalnet with me and Chief Greenbud. Today, I'm going to bring you the opening song that we performed for the San Antonio Norml Freedom Fest. And I got to apologize, first of all, for the video and audio aren't the best in the world. I was recording it off webcam. We were on remote. But I hope you enjoy this. It's a song that Chief Greenbud performs that's a parody of Hey There Delilah by the Plain White T's. And it was the first Chief Greenbud song I had ever heard. And what makes it more interesting is I had never heard the Plain White T's. I'm way out of touch on anything that doesn't have to do with marijuana and maybe a few other things like the Green Bay Packers, let's say. But popular music, I don't know. I never heard it. So when I first heard this song by Chief Greenbud, I thought, this is the greatest marijuana song ever written. It's amazing. And I still think that. I still think it's a very good song. And what's really cool about Chief Greenbud's stuff is it's all very storytelling country. It's very lyrical country. You really have to listen to the words of it. I encourage you all to check out chiefgreenbud.com. That's his website where he's got his third album. It's all done. We're just trying to get a cover art for it, and that'll be released very soon. This song is called It's Only a Weed, and he invited me up on stage to play that with him. So check this out from the Global Marijuana March. Or not Global Marijuana March, from 420, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead of myself. From 420, this is me and Chief Greenbud performing It's Only a Weed.
Okay, everybody, if you can just... Okay, we're going to play some songs about weed.
Yeah.
We're hoping that everybody here likes weed.
Like weed?
Do you like weed?
You people in the back like weed? Nope.
And you know what? Sometimes bad things happen to people that have a little bit of weed. And this song is a story that tells about one young man. Hello, Mr. Officer, and how are you this evening? You say that you're smelling something you don't find very pleasing. Could it be the fact that I've been smoking weed? Yes, indeed. Yes, sir, Mr. Officer, I've got my hands behind me. Don't use any more pepper spray. That last shot was blinding, I can't see. And it's really hard to breathe. I'm in custody. Oh, it's only a weed. Oh, it's only a weed. It's only a weed. Hello, Mom and Dad, it seems I've got a little problem. The policeman thinks I'm dealing. It's prison time, he's talking, could you please call an attorney just for me? I'm in need. Hey, public pretender, when's my case go into trial? I couldn't make my bond, and I've been in jail a while and lost my job. All for a quarter pound of pot, ain't that a crock? Oh, it's only a weed. Oh, it's only a weed. It's only a weed, it's only a weed. Prison life is really hard when they let us in the yard. There's a man named Bubba looking out for me. He thinks that I'm really cute, but I feel like I'm being used. There should better be a better way, 'cause I'm not gay. Hey, future employer, man, there's something I must tell you. When you run all my numbers, well, you're gonna find a record I did time. Having marijuana is a crime. I wish they'd have an open mind. It's not a crime. Oh, it's only a weed. 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 It's only a weed.
The Global Marijuana March is an annual free rally held at different locations across the planet. It refers to cannabis-related events that occur on the first Saturday in May or thereabouts, and may include marches, meetings, rallies, raves, concerts, festivals, and information tables, depending on the city. Here in Dallas this year, since the big day falls on Cinco de Mayo, we're calling ours Cinco de Mota, Festival and March. Sure, mota is Latin American Spanish slang for weed, but the name acknowledges more than just Cinco de Mayo. The name is also a grim acknowledgement from our community of the more than 50,000 Mexican lives that have been lost since President Felipe Calderón launched a massive military crackdown against the cartels in 2006. Texans want to see an end to the drug war and the violence associated with marijuana prohibition across the world. Join us as we celebrate for legalization and the rights of all adults to consume cannabis responsibly. We'll have food trucks, speakers, live music, vendors, fire spinners, prizes, and of course, the march. The plan is to build a party around the march to turn it into a legalization celebration at Dallas City Hall. The party starts at 2. The march is at 4:20. Help us promote the event by clicking the like button below.
Tune in to the Norml Network every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern for our primetime lineup. We begin with an hour of daily Toker tunes, followed by Norml Show Live and Toker Talk Radio, live from Rolla J Studios in Portland, Oregon. Then you get 2 hours of recorded podcasts from national and international reformers, followed by our late night live shows at 11 p.m. Eastern. Then the whole 6-hour block repeats twice overnight. It's the Norml Network, your source for the best in marijuana media.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com.
Norml, unlike any other marijuana or drug reform organization, is built from the ground up by grassroots activists. We are the Marijuana Smokers Lobby, and we aren't just anti-prohibition, we're pro-marijuana. Every week, we take some time to talk to the citizens of local Norml chapters across the country and around the world, as well as others who are working to make a difference in the fight to end adult marijuana prohibition. In this segment we call grassroots activism.
Got to meet a lot of great people at the Patients Out of Time conference in Tucson, Arizona. Big thanks to Al Byrne and Mary Lynn Mathry for putting on that fantastic conference and allowing me to bring it to you live. I'm going to bring you some of the highlights of that. We're going to start with this first. Jim Clark, who's an Oregon activist here in medical marijuana for a long time. He's running for state representative in our state, and he sat down at our desk to tell us all about it.
As far as medical marijuana goes, Elaine is definitely behind the vote of the people, whereas Dwight Holton has basically called our program a train wreck. And for those of us who have been actually part of the program itself since its inception, like I have, most of the train wrecks that I've seen have been caused, through law enforcement's improper going after people just because they have cards.
Yeah.
And I don't like to see that, and it's pretty obvious that Holton's never had any of my train wreck.
And of course, Dwight Holton was the U.S. attorney, the acting U.S. attorney, who sent out the threatening letters to our Oregon clubs and collectives.
Exactly, and I think that's enough to make 60,000 plus cardholders a little bit angry in the state about that, because it showed that he had no care for the sick and would rather back the federal government. Oregon's been long state on top of having good state-based laws. It goes all the way back to the bottle law.
Right, and Oregon's also been fairly lucky in being able to avoid federal interference for the most part.
Well,
for the most part.
Right.
For the most part.
And I believe the reason behind that is, unlike some of the other states, for instance, I was involved in 215 in California. Pete Wilson didn't like it. He had aspirations of becoming president back in that time, so he didn't sign it in he didn't veto it, but he didn't sign it in as a law, which caused the Wild Wild West syndrome.
Right.
In the state of Oregon, our government and an administration has always been behind it and has stood up for us on a couple of occasions. And so by Pete Wilson and one state not doing it, that's kind of like an invite to say, come on in, feds, we don't like it anyhow.
Yeah.
And in the state of Oregon, it's kind of like, it's state law, the people of Oregon want it, please back off, and if you're going to do anything, do it helpful, because this is about this particular face of cannabis, as I call them, the four faces. The medicinal face is for the sick, and we don't need to convolute it by saying that it's an illegality and causing these other problems. Those other problems have always been there.
Yeah, and the other story that's come out recently that has kind of an Oregon attachment to it. Back in 2008, when President Obama was running, he was interviewed by the Medford Mail Tribune down in Southern Oregon, and he mentioned how he wouldn't be using federal resources to circumvent state laws on medical marijuana. Now, of course, he's 170 raids into his administration. It seems like maybe that promise has been broken. What are your feelings about President Obama's handling of medical marijuana, and would you support him in the general?
Well, I probably will, because I have a little bit different of a take on it, particularly now as a campaign and running a campaign and wanting to be part of that political system. And that is that I think Obama's been very shrewd in the fact that, you may be the president, you may be the governor, but when it comes to having laws your way, the people vote them in. The people also have to turn around, watch their backs, and stand up and keep them strong.
Yeah.
Which is what he has done on a level. When the first letters came out from the federal government about what they were going to do and what they weren't going to do, they left a truck big enough, a hole big enough to drive a truck through to stop things. But those things were, commonsensically right, no guns, laundered money, stuff like that.
Sure.
It does happen out there, and that's really their job to enforce that type of thing. Right. I don't think it's the law of the federal government to enforce laws in the same nature when they have to do with health and welfare. I really like the Dutch system where they have the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Health. One doesn't jump into the other one's stuff, and you know, if you're a cop and you want to be part of the medical marijuana system, then I hope you have a card.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jim, let's wrap this up. If you've got a website or any place to send people to if they want more information on what you're involved with.
We have 3 minutes and we're going to start the conference again. Thank you very much.
3 minutes, it starts back up. Yeah, I have two. My campaign site is Jim Clar for rep.com. And I'm also the CEO of Oregon Green Free, which is www.oregongreenfree.net, where you go once you do have your card, and we do have clinical services.
It's Jim Clar for Rep. That's Klahr. Jim Clar for Rep. And running for, which district is it you're running in Oregon?
District 1.
District 1 in the state of Oregon. So, do people have to register? Are you running Democrat, Independent, Green?
Well, I have nobody that I'm running against in the primary.
Okay, so it's an unopposed primary and then the general.
It'll be the general election November 6th.
All right, check it out. Jim Clar for Rep. And Jim, thanks so much for joining us here on our live coverage of the Patients Out of Time conference. Nice to see you.
All right, that's Jim Clar, and we'll be bringing you more from him as his campaign goes on. The next person who got up actually spoke at the podium. You'll see him way in the distance, little tiny dot. Our good friend Robert Platshorn, the Black Tuna, America's longest-serving marijuana prisoner, did 29 years bringing weed to the States, weed that your folks smoked. So check him out on the senior tour here.
Anybody here like marijuana? Anybody think it should be legal for adults and they should stop putting people like me in jail? I'll tell you how it's going to be done, and not talking to each other. I realized 2 years ago at Seattle Hemp Fest, when I had lots of people sending me up love, and I was talking about my book and the movie Square Grouper that's on Showtime now, that I was preaching to the choir. And I looked around and I tried to decide where I could do the most good. And it was obvious when Prop 19 went down the drain in California that the only reason was the senior vote, because they were the only people who went and voted. And so I decided to do something about it and develop something called the Silver Tour. It's not a lecture, it's not a seminar, it's not a panel, it's a show. I go to huge senior communities, give them a free buffet that fills the seats. I make sure that activists don't fill the seats. We talk to strangers. If you saw the piece on CNN, you saw that people come in as strangers and they walk out as activists. I make an introduction, teach them a little bit about why marijuana is illegal, how they wanted to stop the hemp industry, what Harry Anslinger used to say, and then I usually have a doctor, nurse, or researcher come up and talk about the medical benefits of cannabis. We know, but the people we speak to don't know. My generation's not against cannabis. We never bought the government's lies to begin with. We invented marijuana as it's known today, and that happens to be the truth. It wasn't a popular drug before that. And after a doctor gets up and reassures them that it won't interfere with their medicines and that it's safe and that it can be used for the things that bother them, and seniors need it more than anybody, then they get to hear from patients. Irv Rosenfeld from Patients Out of Time, one of the 4 remaining federal patients, is on my board of directors, and he's at all the Silver Tour shows. And then we usually have a lawyer and a senator or a congressman come up and tell people how they can change the law. At the last show, there were 240 people. 200 people, 2 days later, called the 2 most powerful Republicans in Florida and made 200 calls to each of them. That's how powerful the Silver Tour show is. Now I need your help. I've got a big show next Wednesday in Delray Beach, Florida. And Australia TV7, the biggest network in Australia, has sent over a full crew to do a feature story on our show. But I am missing medical personnel. I don't have a doctor or a nurse or a researcher who will come and do that 10-minute slot that's so very important, because that's the key to the whole Silver Tour. And I was hoping there'd be somebody here from Florida or willing to travel to Florida to be in the show Wednesday night. You will be on Australian TV, and I guarantee you that will echo right back to national media in this country. It always does. The Silver Tour has been featured on CNN, Newsweek. In 10 days, you're going to see the most fabulous article you could ever dream of in the least likely place, the Wall Street Journal. They did a fabulous story, and it'll be in about 10 days. We've attracted every major network, and it started a dialogue with seniors who were afraid to come out of the closet and talk to their neighbors, even though they might be interested. Now they can say, oh, I saw it on CNN. But if there's anybody here who's willing to come down to Florida and be in the show next Wednesday evening, please let me know. I need somebody to fill the most important slot in the show. Just 10 or 15 minutes of good, solid 101. What it is, how it works, and what it can do for seniors for the things that bother them. Things like Crohn's, Alzheimer's, lack of sleep. Those are the things they're interested in. Assure them it doesn't interfere with their medicine, but it might mitigate it enough so they can cut down on their medicines and avoid the opiates. If you'd like to do that, please get in touch with me. By the way, people walk around here with a shirt. I'm a patient, not a criminal. I'm a criminal, not a patient. I'm the guy who did 30 years for marijuana, more than anybody in America. Thank you.
That's right. Bobby Toon is telling it like it is, and for about $5,000, you can get him to your city, speaking to your seniors, and nothing would go better to forwarding the end of marijuana prohibition. Our final guest there at the Patients Out of Time conference is Nurse Ed Glick, who's also from Oregon, and he's trying to start the American Cannabinoid Nurses Association, a valid cause if I ever heard one.
Welcome back to the Patients Out of Time conference here in Tucson, Arizona. I'm joined here at the desk by my guest, Nurse Ed Glick from Oregon. We have to come all the way to Oregon to see each other.
Okay. Yes, indeed.
All the way to Arizona. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Kind of weird how that worked out. But Nurse Ed, you've been working on this for a long time, and you wanted to give a shout out here to some of the people and the topics that were important to you.
Well, I really wanted to just emphasize that I am the secretary for the American Cannabis Nurses Association, the ACNA, and Mary Lynn and myself and a small, humble group of servants of the Lord are busy trying to put together a nursing organization that is dedicated towards incorporating cannabis medicine into nursing practice. So I'm really interested in this regard in any nurses who are functioning with cannabis patients, who interact with them in hospitals, who are interested in learning more about endocannabinoid therapeutics, which is essentially a emerging subspecialty of medicine that nurses have almost no training on at all. So that is the purpose of this organization, and I really want to invite anybody who is a nurse or who knows a nurse to get in touch with us, the ACNA. They can do that through my number, which is 541-224-4039. And we will very shortly have a website, AmericanCannabisNursesassociation.org or .com. But it's really important to reach out to nurses, so please join us and help us build this organization so that we have influence on nursing practice. At this point we don't, but if we have enough nurses, I believe we will. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you everybody. Again,
you're welcome.
541-224-4039.
And send that to me by email. Send me the information when ACNA is ready to go. We'll book you on the show, on the podcast, to do an official,
Indeed.
Let everyone know it. We'll proclaim it.
I'll send you some information.
Yeah, and we'll get as much info out as we can.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you,
You're
Ed.
wonderful.
Appreciate it. That's Ed Glick, registered nurse from Corvallis, Oregon, who's been a major activist in medical marijuana in my home state of Oregon, and looking to form the American Cannabinoid Nurses Association to get more information out to nurses about the need to to pass, to use cannabis as medicine. I mean, nurses, so much more than doctors, have that day-to-day interaction with their patients, and they know better than anyone how much they can use this kind of medicine. We're going to stay on break here. We got a few more people wandering around. Maybe we'll get some more guests here to sit down and give us a chat. You're listening to the Patients Out of Time conference here, live coverage on the Norml Network.
Yeah, and more of that coverage is available if you check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/normalnet. We're going to bring you a little more after we come back from break. Dr. Andrew Weil was there and gave us some opening remarks and more when we come back.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Thank you, Al. Good morning, and congratulations to you and Mary Lynn for putting on this conference. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to speak to you briefly. I'll be back this afternoon to be on a panel. Dr. Becker gave up his speaking time this morning. He said so I could share some of my personal experiences in cannabis research. In fact, he's terrified of public speaking. And he told me that after hearing the comments about public speaking and toxic cortisol release in Matthew Hill's presentation about stress yesterday, that he'll never speak again. It's been almost 45 years since I did the first double-blind human experiments with marijuana. And when that work was published in 1968, I predicted that marijuana would be legalized within 5 years because I thought it was just a matter of ignorance. And then when people learned how benign marijuana was, especially relative to alcohol and tobacco, that was all that it would take. I did not realize that it was irrationality and prejudice that really maintained these prohibitions, and that people did not want to know the truth, and that when you told them the truth, they simply put that aside and didn't pay attention to it. And that was before we knew anything about the endocannabinoid system or the vast medical potential of marijuana. The traditional uses were known about an anti-nausea effect and possibly an effect with asthma, glaucoma, muscle spasticity, but really nothing about these tremendous potentials with cancer and very serious diseases. Now I have to tell you, first of all, let me say that I welcome you on behalf of the University of Arizona College of Medicine. I also have to say that I'm somewhat embarrassed that my university did not provide CME credit for this conference. And I'll just read you one comment. When we approached our university for CME, the person who was to pass this on to a higher committee wrote back, "My understanding is that there will be sampling done at the conference." And this has caused concern from the university. But this is Arizona. Now, I have to tell you, and this is especially directed to physicians and other people in the healthcare professions here, it really is our responsibility that we are not able to use marijuana medically. And I think if you don't know the history of drug legislation in this country and the response of the medical profession and allied health professions to it, you really want to learn that. And I'll just briefly summarize this for you. Prior to the passage of the Harrison Narcotics Act in 1914, there really was no legislation controlling narcotics, which were mostly opiates and cocaine. And these substances, both in crude form and refined form, were widely available in over-the-counter and patent medications, which sometimes did not list the content on the label. Doctors, when they got their hands on morphine and heroin and cocaine, dispensed them like candy for everything, completely unaware of the potential dangers of addiction. They got thousands and thousands of patients addicted to these drugs. And when they were called to account for what had happened, their response, and this has been consistent over the years, is very predictable. Doctors say, this had nothing to do with us and our prescribing practices. These are inherently bad drugs, so please take them away from us. When the Harrison Narcotics Act was passed, it was a revenue act that was intended to monitor the movement of these drugs in society, to keep records of them so we knew how much was where they were going, and so forth. There was no intent to interfere with medical use of these drugs or physicians' prescribing practices. The Justice Department, on its own, in the early 1920s, began going after doctors who were using opiates especially to help patients who were addicted get off them. And there were widely publicized cases in which the Justice Department prosecuted physicians for dispensing opiates to addicts. The AMA knuckled under completely to this. They put up no resistance whatever. And in the course of a short space of time, this legislation was transformed into an act of criminal prosecution. And doctors were terrified that they would lose their licenses and wanted nothing further to do with this kind of prescribing. In England, the same sequence of events occurred, and the medical profession there put up very stiff resistance to government attempts to interfere with the prescribing of these substances. As a result, what happened here never happened there completely. For example, British doctors retained the right to use heroin as a medical drug. Heroin has some advantages over morphine. It's immediately metabolized to morphine in the body, and there's really no difference in addictive potential. But heroin is more potent as an analgesic, meaning you can produce the same results with a lower dose. One of the problems in using morphine in patients is that it sometimes causes unacceptable side effects, especially extreme nausea and itching. And sometimes you can relieve pain with heroin in a lower dose that does not cause those side effects. So there's an advantage there. There is no reason why we don't have heroin as a medically useful drug, but in this country it was declared to be a demon drug that had no redeeming therapeutic purpose. The same thing happened when the Marijuana Tax Act was passed in 1937. Not one member of the medical profession stepped forward to protest that legislation. In fact, the AMA supported it. And in fact, the only opposition witness in Congress when that legislation was discussed was a representative of the birdseed lobby, which didn't want to have to go to the trouble of sterilizing marijuana seeds that it put into birdseed. So I would say to you that a big portion of the responsibility for where we are today is with us. It is our right to dispense the drugs that we deem to be safe and useful. And we need to take that right back, which was taken away from us, so long ago, and very unfairly. So I would love to see the medical profession in this country get some spine to it and begin to stand up and declare that we know that cannabis is a safe drug. In fact, there's no safer drug out there. You can't kill people with cannabis. You can kill people with every drug you see advertised on television today. And with really every drug that we use in conventional medicine. It's just a matter of dose. But you can't do that with cannabis. So there's nothing that matches its safety record. And the potential usefulness of this substance is vast. So why don't we have it? Why aren't we able to recommend it? It's our fault, and I would charge you with the responsibility of taking that right back. I would also say that my sense is that most doctors that I know are not comfortable with recommending a medicine in the form of something to be smoked, nor are they comfortable with recommending something whose use is not clearly distinguished from recreational use of an intoxicant. So I think it's a vital necessity to have forms of cannabis available for medical use that look like medical drugs, that come in forms that doctors are familiar with, that are standardized, predictable, and so forth. And I think it's also worth all of our time to try to make those kinds of products appear in our country. I think that will make acceptance by the medical profession much easier. So that's really my main message to you this morning. I'm going to stop there, and I'll be back this afternoon to share more information with you on the panel. Thanks.
And that was Dr. Andrew Weil from the Patients Out of Time conference that just took place in Tucson, Arizona. I was out there covering the conference, and more videos are available at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/normalnet. That's all the time we've got for today's show. Thanks for joining us. And when we come back here for hour 2, if you're sticking around, we got all sorts of really cool stuff. There's an interesting blog from Mark Emery that we have to discuss on I-502. Plus, I'm going to bring you a video of Jehan Marku and Kathy Jordan from the Patients Out of Time conference. She is one of the longest surviving Lou Gehrig's patients out there, and it's all because of medical marijuana. All that, plus Wiz Khalifa and Cannabis Carry, and I believe Ganja John's out there in the chat room, so check it out. Log on to live.norml.org, create your account, and make yourself a part of the Marijuana Nation. We got to go. For Wiz Khalifa and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
You're listening to the Norml Network, where the